Hello everyone, I'm just doing a catch-up because I have not even done any videos for like 12 months, and I'm sitting in my new studio space. I moved in here probably about 12 months ago, and the move was such a big move. Had to fully renovate the room, and you can see my journals and some of my materials behind me, and I'm sitting at my soon to be gone teaching desk. I'm reorganizing again, and this year has been one of the most busiest years of my life. I've been at university full-time studying arts psychotherapy, and I've done really well in my first year. I'm really excited about my progress. So I've come out of 9 subjects with 7 high distinctions, 1 distinction and 1 credit. And the credit was due to the fact that I actually lodged an essay for a subject that was worth like 50%, but I lodged my first draft rather than my last draft, and it was a big wake-up call for me to be very careful about what I do and how I do it, because the essay was actually a great essay, but it was the first draft was a dog's breakfast. And what that taught me was I had to learn about my inner critic. And I know in art circles we talk about that a lot, but with art I was a lot more compassionate with myself because I knew I was new and starting out and learning new skills. But when it came to academics, I really found that that was a strong suit for me. And if you have something that's a strong suit, it can then become a saboteur. And when I was looking at the positive intelligence, so you could look up positive intelligence on Google and take the questionnaire about what are your saboteurs, and then what is your SAGE, what is your general happiness level. I don't really like the term positive intelligence, but it is what the creator talks about. And I found that my main saboteur was academic hyperachiever. And that makes sense, because if I was knocked for 6 when I failed an essay, it really taught me a lot about myself and where I had unconsciously been getting a lot of my self-worth. And that translates over into the art sphere as well. So I guess this year has been a huge learning curve for me. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about how complex trauma in childhood can affect you when you grow through adolescence and into adulthood, and different ways of coping. And I find that understanding that for me has made a huge difference in the way that I approach life now, and how I listen to people, and in my art therapy practice how that translates into being with another. And when you hear the words being with another, it's about understanding the presence of another, their body language, the way their body moves and feels, any body language movements that they have, the tone of voice, what they say, how they say it, what they look like, but then bracketing out and zoning out all of those things that can impact you from a judgmental level. And I just have learnt so much within this sphere this year, and it really clarifies for me where my future practice as an art psychotherapist will be. So I really feel that there's a great need in the education sector for children and young adolescents, because when we're forming personality in those early years in childhood and then moving into adolescence, where we really lay down our strong suits about how we cope with whether it's bullying or academics or social skills or acne, the way we look, self-image. All of those things come together and they shape how we deal with another and others as adults, and also how we go on to achieve our goals and where that all heads for us, and how we approach our life and our careers, and whether we even think that we're worthy to have a career. And so I think those things all come together to, you know, work and make us a more rounded human being. And I'd really love to have an impact with really good mentoring and programs to be able to kind of help shape those thought processes before negative and maladaptive behaviours become the normal within our young people. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at in my learning journey at the moment. On the workspace, I'm like so busy. I work and I teach with art therapy practices at Canefields Clubhouse in Australia, in Brisbane, and I have a fabulous group there. And if you follow me on social media, so if you look for missladypetal, you'll find all my social media links. You'll see we're working on really large mural in the cafeteria at the moment. We've also installed professional hanging gallery stuff within there so that we can have our gallery artworks on display and for sale with proper labels. We're mobilising the space, and I'm finding more work there to do individual work with dual diagnosis members that have, you know, disability and a lived experience of mental illness in that space, and doing one-on-one work with them as well as group work. And I love the energy in Canefields Clubhouse. There's such a great vibe. And I also teach art to school students, and I work at Tammy's Art Studio in Springwood in Logan. I've taken on the Saturday morning classes during terms, and I do workshops during school holidays. I also do, I'm taking on the Thursday night teens group, and that's a real mixed media context with Jermu, who's a fabulous animation teacher. And we'll work together to help foster all different aspects of mixed media work that's specific to drawing and watercolours and painting and sculpture. And I love that. I also do my art therapy workshops at Women & Co. They used to be called Logan Women's Health and Wellbeing Centre, but now they're Women & Co. And I do art therapy workshops as part of the CRANK program for 12 to 17-year-old teen girls, and also part of the Live Well program, where I'm doing a really cool workshop called Box of Wisdom at the moment. And I still have my Brave Girls workshops going for CRANK, because I think understanding bravery and how it works in our society and where it is for you at your level, where you're at in your lived experience, in your journey at the moment, is really important. So I find that those things are really good to help skill and tool our teenage girls in this practice of life that they engage in. And the feedback from those workshops is actually really, really positive. I enjoy working with teens, and that's shaped how I feel about this at the moment. So life here is really good, and I still have my two kitty cats, Ellie and Pussalicious. Ellie will probably jump up in a second because she's here annoying me. So she's like my little therapy cat. She's a gorgeous girl, and she tends to attach herself to any girls that come into my therapy space, and those that are most distressed, she seeks out them first, and then she helps them calm down and regulate their nervous systems, and they just adore her. and most of them want to take her home in their art bags by the end of the sessions. But you know, I find there's lots of things that I've learnt this year, and one of the biggest stumbling blocks I think all of us find is self-care, that we need to do those things which bring us joy. I mean, part of this decluttering process that I'm going through at the moment, where I'm basically cleaning out everything in my house that doesn't bring me joy, and I handle those things. I mean, obviously, as part of my teaching studio, I have a lot of teaching equipment that if I was just an artist, I wouldn't necessarily keep around. I would only keep those things that bring me joy. But because I teach mixed media art to a lot of different demographics and a lot of different settings, and my future art therapy practice, I know that some of my lecturers at uni, they have to now go from talk therapy to art therapy, and they've had to accumulate a lot of different things, whereas I'm kind of starting that journey pretty much set up. I mean, I'm looking at having a larger collection of symbols, but as far as art making equipment and items, then I have those in spades, and that puts me in a really good position when I'm practicing or going to a job and I need to set up an art therapy studio somewhere that I work with. So there's lots of things within self-care that you can help yourself with. What I've realised as I've had a deeper look into those things that bring me joy is that I love singing. So I sing in my church and I enjoy that a lot. And that there's, you know, studies that have been done that talk about contagion for joy and for those things, and singing's one of those things that like creates a contagion amongst all the participants if you've got few people singing and playing music, and that joy then becomes a shared thing. And so I keep that up, and I listen to music, and I do binge watch Netflix a bit as we all do, I think. And I also think things like forest bathing and going to the ocean and listening to the sound of the waves, I do that not as often, but if you sit in the forest and you don't talk, it has a profound effect on your nervous system. It's interesting how family life always interrupts when you want to film something. My son had just come in. He's my youngest son Dominic's now finished high school and's got a job, got his P's, and he's now driving. And this year was a huge year for me family-wise because I became a nonna. And my little grandson Declan is now 11 months old. And I'm like so excited about how amazing that little boy is. He is adorable. And I guess I felt too young to be a nonna, because my oldest son Brandon and his fiancée Rihanna, they're very young. They're about the age that I was when I got married at 19. They're now 20. And to be having a baby, I didn't have babies until I was like 26. So it was really interesting to go through that whole process with them, and to go down and be with them in the first 4 weeks after he was born and help look after them, which incidentally he was born on the day I actually started uni, so it was very hectic. Very hectic 4 weeks, but he has brought incredible joy to my life, and I love him to bits, and I personally think he's the cutest little button on the planet. He's just adorable, and he's got a lovely personality, and he's not a difficult child to entertain and to have some fun with. So that's really cool. And once he got over his separation anxiety, he's going through that at the moment, I was like second favourite person in the house. maybe not. Maybe Mum and Dad first. But I saw a lot of him when I was here. And he really liked it when I read him stories. So at 11 months old, he really liked it when I read him stories. So I'm going to read him some more stories over Skype and send little videos and do things like that. And part of that is he can listen to my voice, and I can say good morning to him, and I can, or good night to him, and I can read him stories, and they can replay those over and over again if they need to with the book. And I have the same books up here. When I buy books for him now, I buy two. One for me, a little small version, and one for him. He usually has a toy or something with it, so because when he's really young, he can play with something and listen to the reading. Not as interested in the pictures, more in the voice and the tones at the moment, and particularly loves things, books by Mem Fox, like Harry McClary and Slinky Malinky, and they're very lyrical and poetic in the way that they're written, and he really, those are the books that he really loves at the moment. But that'll change. There's lots of other books in there as well, and I'm sure he will love those equally as much. And I'm kind of gearing up. This is my last week off. It's the weekend. It's Saturday here in Australia. It's my last week off before I get back into work next week. And I have a lot of art therapy workshops on, and kids art workshops, and back to work at Canefields Clubhouse. And then I also have the finalisation of all my reorganisation to get done before I go back to uni, because once I do that, there ain't no going back. I'm doing an extra subject this trimester, so in a trimester I would normally do 3 subjects, but in this first one I'm doing 4. I think I'm doing 4 the whole time. I think I've got 2 electives in this first trimester, and it will be a bit insane. Or it could be second semester I have another elective. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I'm looking forward to the prac component of that. I've got 480 hours of prac to do, and I'm able to then put into practice. I mean, I am putting into practice. I already have an art therapy practice, but I am putting into practice everything I'm learning. But I may be able to get some RPL for that as well, which would be lovely. And I've just connected, like, it's so amazing the things that life throws at you. A friend found me who I have not spoken to for 27 years. So just after I got married, Jeremy and I moved away from hometown and moved north, and back then there was no real internet. We didn't have mobile phones. You basically corresponded by writing letters. Email wasn't really even a thing at that point. So we did that, and we didn't really do that. I didn't think to do that when we moved, to exchange addresses and write letters. I wasn't a fabulous letter writer, and our life was so new and exciting, and Jeremy was at uni and I was finding work, and it was all, you know, just life got in the way, I guess. And I regret that to a large degree, I really do. But you know what? It's all bittersweet, you know, like we've found each other now, and she's very much like I remember her, gone on a huge journey, and is now married and has a lovely life, and we just really connected really well. It's almost like we just picked off where we left off. There's that easiness in our conversations, that shared knowing of another, and I find that that works incredibly well, and there's a lot of joy to be had in that. And because she's a social worker, has a social worker background, my uni and learning journey in becoming a fully fledged therapist is really exciting, because she just talks the talk, and so we can talk about those that language set that I use now, And it's interesting, you know, you learn something new and you go to learn the language around it. You learn the skills that go with the language, but you start off by learning the language, because if you learn the language, then you have comprehension of what that language means. And I find the same in the mixed media artwork world. You know, when I wrote my article for Cloth, Paper, Scissors a few years back, it was more about the language of mixed media and how to help new people that enter that space understand that language and the terminology, because mixed media means everything. So you're not just talking oil paints, you're talking watercolours, acrylics, pencils, pastels, alcohol markers, watercolour markers, spray paints, you name it, all different mediums. And you just, that's so much to take in for someone that just starts out. And it's like you just have to think and help people along that path so that they can have some confidence and some knowledge around what are the best things to buy, what might they like, what if they've got a limited budget, what is the best things for their budget, what do they want to start off with, do they want to start with drawing, do they want to start with painting, do they want to start with stamping, stenciling, collage, what is it that brings them joy. And helping people along that journey is such an exciting thing. And I will see a lot more of that in this year, I think. And that means that I have precious little time to do any kind of art videos and take the time to edit them, compress them and upload them to YouTube. I will probably endeavour to do a few more vlogs this year, knowing, you know, just getting some feedback lately from people that like to follow me, that they miss my vlogs, miss to see how I'm going and miss the sound of my voice. You can see photographs of me, but you can't kind of hear my voice and see how I'm travelling. And so that's kind of what this is about now. I tend to work A3 now rather than A4. I have a lot of my journals behind me, but I tend to work in big portfolios because most of the work that I do becomes demos for classes that I run, and you want to have a bigger size. It's not just for me anymore, it's for others. I mean, I like to do stuff for me, and I've done some portraiture over the break just to, you know, keep my hand in and enjoy doing that skill while I'm doing all my decluttering, and had family here for Christmas, and it was a big Christmas, and all of that sort of cleaning up. But those are safely stowed away in portfolios now. And I have more of my artwork in my bedroom because it brings me joy, and certain paintings that I love to wake up to are there as I wake up in the morning and my eyes open and I see those paintings, they're there. And it's about having that space. You know, I painted a beautiful sunset scene that had reeds in the foreground and a beautiful sunset and sky and water, landscape. And I framed that for my husband, and he loves to wake up for that because it could be a sunrise or a sunset. And he really likes that. It sets him up for the day, and it's really nice and calming. And he thinks of the beach when he wakes up, and it just gives him a really nice, restful thing to look at when he wakes up in the morning, which was not what was there before. And it's having a more mature approach, I think, to that which we surround ourselves with, and me having a keen eye and understanding what brings him joy, and then what brings, you know, both of us joy, and the activities that bring us joy this year. So not just that decluttering method about picking up items and they bring us joy or are useful to us, but it's about really thinking about the shared activities that we like. So he likes going to the markets. I'm not as much about that. I kind of get in, get out. The experience of the markets I find same. But going and having a cup of coffee, we did that this morning. Went to the markets, had a cup of coffee together, had a bit of a walk around, came home. Working on the decluttering together, and he's working with me now and being really conscientious about not leaving things lying around on the floor, because, you know, when I go back to uni and I'm working, I will have almost no spare time. I think Sundays will be my only full day off, and that will be amazingly difficult for me to regulate my way through that. But I know it's for a season, and I think I'll have lots of barocca during that period, and lots of self-care, and yeah, I don't know, maybe not lots of art during that time, but it'll be all worth it, I think, in the end. This journey is really big, and I'm actually thinking about doing a double degree. So I'm doing a degree in arts psychotherapy at the moment. It's the first of its kind in Australia, so it's an undergraduate degree, a bachelor. And it's the first time where you could come out as a fully qualified art therapist without having to do an undergraduate degree in some other discipline and then go into a master's in art therapy. I get automatic entry into the master's program if I want to do it, but it makes me wonder whether I should, if I want to go into the education system, whether I should do a master's in education rather than art psychotherapy. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I'm in between a master's in counselling, art psychotherapy, majoring in mental health, education, or social work. So those are kinds of all the different kind of thoughts I'm having around that at the moment. But, you know, it's one of those journeys where the further in I get, the more clarifying it will be, and I enjoy that. So this is the main thing that I'm looking at this year. It's about, as I'm organising, you know, because I teach and I'm a mobile teacher, so I take a lot of my materials to other studios and practice. It's about having tubs of groups of families of things, picking up the tub, walking out with it. I might take a few more things in, but they're all organised, and instead of having to put everything away when I get home, I literally just put the tub back on the shelf, and it's well labelled and I know where everything is. And being clever about where I put things, so things that I don't use nearly as much, like packing stuff for artworks, and what else? Packing stuff for artworks, my pouring, acrylic pouring, tools, bubble wrap, all those sorts of things are all at the top of my shelves because I don't use them very often. But they're really important to have when I need to ship items, or I'm moving items for exhibition all through the year. So I do use them, but they're very light to get off. And, you know, I've got my little trusty step ladder in here so I can get to my high shelves, and those things here where I work, you know, all the journals, and below these, on these lower shelves here, are all my textbooks for art psychotherapy, and that'll grow this year. I've freed up some of those so that I'm got my nook, my study nook. And yeah, just really one thing that I love though, that I got, that I probably didn't share on here in any other vlogs, are paper drawers. Oh, I'm in love with my paper drawers. And I was able to pick up a set of paper drawers that were custom built for a botanical artist, and she was getting rid of them, and she paid $1,500 for the drawers, and she charged me $120. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're just the most beautiful drawers. So strong, they're very heavy, but at least they're on casters so we can wheel them around. But they are going to move into this big studio, and because I'm not teaching, I've decided to suspend teaching in here this year because of my study and outsourced, you know, my outward teaching commitments just completely fill up my time. I just don't have time for that, to be able to actually do workshops in my home studio anymore. So it then literally then becomes a home study / studio where I can be creative, plan my programs that I take out elsewhere in the peace and quiet of home. My stencil business is still going, my uni studies are still going, and everything's at my fingertips for that I need. And I find that hopefully is going to work for me this year. You can see I'm just a bit zen at the moment. I think all this decluttering has this kind of, I release more serotonin or dopamine into my system while I'm decluttering, and the satisfaction that I feel as I look over not just cluttered mess, but the possibility of less cluttered mess. You can imagine that. So yeah, that's exciting. And I guess I'll just, every 3 months or so, I'll try and update this space. And I do know, for those that follow me on YouTube, there was someone who was asking me the other day whether my bookbinding courses were on my website. The way that my courses work, I've got all journaling Crazy Island style 2014, 2015, 2016 lessons up there, and the resource book, a course where you basically catalogue everything in your stash and you have a look and see what you've got and you do tests on it. That's a really excellent course. It's very detailed, and there was 3 collaborators, me, Claudia Rossi and Gina Aarons, while we were still working in partnership for Journaling Crazy Island Style, and we brought that out. And it was my baby. It was a project where I felt that if you were a mixed media artist and you really wanted to know what your products could do, not just what they say they can do, but test with all the different products and mediums that you have, and you know how they go with, say, markers and paints, and how they go with pastels, or how they go with other different kinds of paints, or how certain paints interact with fabric medium, or how crayons interact with matte medium, all those kinds of things. That's the course for you, and it's worth the $25. You'll save more than $25 by using what you have rather than buying something new, and you will stop double buying products like I used to do all the time, because I couldn't find them, because everything was organised and I knew what I had. I could check. If I was doing online ordering for, say, Prisma pencils, then I knew exactly what colours I had, and I wouldn't double order them just because they were my favourite colours and I love them. So my bookbinding course, I had 2 years worth. So I had the first floating spine, and this is all for loose leaf bookbinding. The floating spine and the leather-bound journal, I had those up there for Dropbox, but I didn't have the Coptic. For some reason, the Coptic, all my finished and polished videos had dropped off. My photos had dropped off. I don't know where they went to, but I had all my raw videos, so I retook some photos, and today, just today, I'm actually processing all of those, polishing them off, compressing them, going to upload them to Dropbox, and then they will be available. That course in the 3 different bookbinding courses, the 3 different types of bookbinding for loose leaf journals will be there, and that will go up in the next couple of days. Once I've compressed it, or I then need to upload them all to Dropbox, that will take a little while. But then what happens is you go to my website, I get the PayPal order. Put notes in your PayPal order about what product you've bought so that I know which link to send you, because I've noticed when people buy stuff from my website, I just get notified that they've bought something, but I don't know what they've bought. So I just know the amount, and from the amount, but I've got a lot of things that are similar amounts, particularly my courses. So it's important to tell me just in a few words what the item is that you've bought. I haven't been able to add things to that PayPal notification email that I get. Then what I do is I email you the link, the Dropbox links to the folder for the course that you purchased, and you either have access to that whilst I'm still doing it. I highly recommend that you download all of those ones, and then you've got them and you don't have to worry about it anymore, because I may discontinue some of those courses at some point. But I do know people who have been waiting on those courses, and that bookbinding one particularly is an extremely comprehensive real-time course. All of the JKIS lessons, the Journaling Crazy Island style lessons, are all full-length, step-by-step, materials list, photographs of the projects, materials list of each art journal page, and it's all about art journaling. And there's a lot of lessons. Most of them are my lessons, but there are some lessons from the other teachers there. So that's exciting. If you want to purchase those, you can go to www.missladypetal.com, and that's the website, and everything's there. I have a blog there, and I have some of my paintings there. I like to put things up on my teaching calendar. It's all down at the moment because I'm not teaching anything, but I will populate that soon and you'll know what's on. I do art journaling monthly, Art Journal Club at Women & Co. at Bean Lee monthly. That's only $10 per class. It's on this year it'll be every third Tuesday of the month. No, Wednesday. It'll be every third Wednesday of the month because my Tuesdays are all booked up with uni, and I won't get home until after that class is supposed to start. So, and you can see when I'm at different places teaching, and I'll just put those recurring events up and you'll know how busy I am, basically. Occasionally I'll do events where you can buy tickets, but I found that people tend to like to pay when they turn up, so I don't do tickets as much on the website anymore, but I do put events up. So if you want to see what events and workshops I'm doing that I run, and I put, you know, what I'm teaching and a materials list up, go to my Miss Lady Petal Creations Facebook page. That's where those events go up, and you can see that really easily. So that's enough from me for now. Ciao. I think I've talked for long enough. It's great to be back with you, and you never know, I might get something up this year, but mainly I think it'll be vlogs for a little while, unless I've decided to film something now that I've got my new studio set up. I may just film something as I'm actually sketching it out and drawing it, painting it. You never know. But ciao. It's great to catch up with you. Leave me comments, and I love interacting with you all. Alright, bye. Have a great 2019.